What is the future of knowledge management? And so on this channel, we've talked a lot about what is knowledge management, and that's the organization of all your data and information architecture that's personal to you. And so that could be your task management, your project management, your note taking, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what it is. What is it going to be in the future? And I feel like no one's talking about this. They're always talking about what tools are coming out and what new features are coming out with these tools and how these new features will change how we interact with it, like object-based note-taking with capacities. I remember that being a big deal, and I think AnyType does that as well now. But I'm trying to think about the future of it and what is going to be next beyond what we have now. Like none of us really saw Notion coming. I mean, I joined it pretty early on, but no one saw how much different a tool like that would change things. And now we're actually kind of seeing people turn their backs to Notion. And I even saw a video the other day about Notion being bad for productivity and stuff like that. And so I wanted to kind of give a trajectory here, and I'm thinking out loud. So there might be a tiny bit of rambling, but I'll try to keep things concise so that way I don't waste time with this video because I don't plan on editing this. And so the first thing first is that back in the day, Da Vinci kind of era, up until basically the mid 1900s, the only thing you really could do is note taking in a book, like a notebook. And that's great, but how do you do that? How do you do it effectively? And that's where like Zettelkasten kind of came in, where it was a unique ID operating system. Essentially, you had these note cards, and so you could find the information quickly if you could remember what that ID was and have some sort of mnemonic. And I think that is a powerful system, and that's why people still use it even to this day, even with all these modern tools. But I think that in my experience, it just never really stuck with me. I guess I've never really given it a true shot, but I felt like it isn't just recalling information that's the issue. It's synergizing information. It's visualizing information. It's also a matter of project management and task management. And I don't think Zettelkasten really works with that. Zettelkasten's kind of great for note-taking in particular, but that's not the only thing that we do. And it doesn't necessarily help too much when it comes to using AI in the future of knowledge management. And so while that's the past, we have the future. And so what I was thinking about is when you're using these different tools, how you interact with these data tools is changing right now. We're seeing a lot of new audio-based tools where you can take audio notes and it'll transcribe it, and thanks to ChatGPT, it can help understand it, and Whisper will help take in the information and send it to GPT to understand it. And so there's a huge revolution right now when it comes to AI-based note-taking tools. And I wanted to kind of touch on that, not in the current state, but what the future of it would be. It's interesting too. The next step is the rise of word processing and taking like notepads and stuff like that on the computer, text files. And so we saw like the rise of just like Microsoft Word and even like OpenOffice, and Google Docs was a huge thing. And Google Docs was a huge shift because it put everything in the cloud. And while I still think local first is the key, I think the hybrid is probably the better option. So I don't have the ability to sync my Obsidian vault because just for some reason the sync didn't really work for me with as big of a vault as I have. Maybe I need to just do like note images and just text, but even then I think it still kind of didn't work. So there's other tools that do it a little bit better. But then like Acrium, actually I almost lost all my data because of the sync. And so syncing has kind of this weird feeling for me where I don't have the best experience with it versus things like with Notion. Everything was in the cloud, so it was synced across devices, but because it was in the cloud, anytime my internet connection dipped, which with my internet service it definitely happened, and with like even this AWS going down, you lost access to Notion. So you need that hybrid option, which is why I'm looking forward to capacities being a localized first tool. But I don't know for sure where the future is going to lie with that. And so maybe AnyType and Auphonic might be kind of key, but I don't really care for the interfaces. Again, it's how we interact with the knowledge management app that's really key. And that's one reason why I really like Obsidian, because I was able to really delve into the folder structure, which is what I like. But I think that in the future, folders may not be as crucial. The reason why I have folders is because of the complexity of what I'm trying to organize. For you, if you're not doing as much content as I am, it really doesn't matter how many folders you have. And so you might just have down to like 6, one for each layer, and then maybe 6 within those, like one each, because then you have the note taking. So you have another folder within it for those notes. Other than that, you may not have that many folders. And so it's really interesting because you might just have pages within those for your habits. And you have one page for your habits, but that page ends up being a Kanban board or maybe a table for the AI to interact with. And so really, you don't actually need a complex system having multiple different docs and multiple different folders like I do right now. And I think that I'm looking forward to that day that we have that. I think that if I could have the Notion database and maybe even like object-based note-taking from capacities. So Notion database, capacities, kind of object-based system, not the only option, but as an alternative option. So I could have an object for like people, an object for content, and not have to worry about them interacting, but also have just a basic note at the same time and have my folders while having like a Notion database to really pull from for big complex things like content, or maybe even bigger like for articles for the traded AI. And then have on top of that, my AI personal assistant. That's where I think it's going to be really an interesting combination. Maybe I need to build that, to be honest. And so if you know how to build it, hit me up in the comments, because I would definitely love to work with you. It's interesting because all these different apps are still not seeing really the big picture when it comes to what could be next. And I know I'm beating around the bush a lot, but I'm trying to paint the picture so that when I explain this, you understand where I'm coming from. All these different tools that have come out, they try to focus on one thing. And so the object-based note-taking was a big change, I feel like. But again, it mainly just situated itself for note-taking. It didn't really do anything for you when it came to project or task management. Task management a little bit, but due to the way that the daily notes work, I felt like capacities failed completely on that. I hate the daily notes and capacities, and I think that might have been because it was on the web, but even the way the UI was, it was not that great. Versus the way you can set up daily notes in Obsidian, it takes setup, of course, but you can set it up in unique ways. I think that was very helpful, especially with different plugins that can change the interface as well. But then even like Acrium had a pretty cool system. I wish they had a calendar function built in. None of these apps have a good calendar, which is weird to me, considering that like that could be deeply integrated into it. And then they'll miss out on the project management. So Obsidian's great, and there's some project management plugins, but none of them are that good. And then Logseq is working towards a database version, which might fix the project management issue, but then it's Logseq, and it doesn't have a good interface in general. It's nice and minimal, it's clean, it's beautiful, but it's not as good as Obsidian when it comes to how you interact with it. And so if I could combine those two, that might be kind of interesting. That might be the way I sync things or something like that. I don't know. And I can interact with a database, maybe. But the point is, I am setting up all these different things in order to situate how I organize my information architecture for me. And I'm trying to set up a precursor to how an AI might interact with it. And so if I were to train an AI based on my data, not only do I have all my notes, but I'm also downloading philosophy, AI, learning models, anything I think is predominantly helpful for an AI to be trained on, to maybe lean towards AGI down the line. But I wanted to like train AI based on some really cool data. And that way, when I ask it a question, it'll come from a multifaceted approach. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting things up now so that when the technology catches up, I can be ready. And that's what I also wanted to mention to you all for the future. It's like future-proofing yourself with your note-taking system, because we're seeing sparks and sparks of technology that are going to change how we interact with different pieces. So I'm trying to open up this stupid box, but as I get that open, I'm going to talk about it. There's different ways that you can interact with just even talking. So instead of having a Google or Alexa Home Assistant, you could have your open source Home Assistant, and that they actually have a device now that allows you to have an omnidirectional mic. And if you set it up, you can actually talk to it or talk to ChatGPT even. You can even have it all local, so you don't even have to send anything to ChatGPT. And on top of that, come on, I just want to... Okay, well, maybe not. These are smart glasses, right? And they're not that smart. They're basically just Bluetooth glasses with microphones and speakers. But there's other smart glasses that interact directly with ChatGPT or some other kind of AI. And I think Meta Ray-Bans are going towards it, but I think Lumos is probably the more cooler one. But imagine you have these glasses and you have your own local LLM model on a Home Assistant little mini PC. There's a lot of more powerful AI PCs now. You could have a local LLM and actually be able to run it without burning down your GPU. And you can tell these glasses, hey, Jarvis, tell me what I'm looking at right now, because there's a camera on them. Not these, but the ones I'm thinking of. These are just, again, Bluetooth speakers, essentially. But they're cool. And the fact that I can listen to music, and they also have like photochromic glasses. lenses. I digress. Technology like that is bridging how we interact with data. Combine that with a little home assistant device that I mentioned. Combine that with maybe, I don't know, motion technology. I'm curious to see how a Connect would work with that. And you interact with your data more often. And you could be like, hey, Lumos, tell me what's in my daily note for today and what do I need to do? And it can pull from your data using your glasses, mind you. You might not even be home. It might just be accessing your server at home that you set up prior. And that server is running an Obsidian Vault with an AI plugin that's connected to a local LLM on the computer. And that's the only data that's going in and out. It's not going to the cloud at all. It's only going through to your phone. And you could be like, hey, what's on my daily note today? Because I'm out on a walk. That is what I'm talking about, where you can actually interact with your vault outside of the home. It's still local, but you can have access to it. And I think that is a really interesting dynamic that a lot of people aren't really talking about enough. They're still thinking cloud first or local first. And while some tools are talking about hybrid, they're not really imagining what it could be. Now, I think there's some few articles on Medium that are kind of interesting. None of them I can link to you right now. I've been seeing them over the course of months. But there's more and more people kind of writing about it, but not enough people making videos. That's why I wanted to get you to think about it more. And let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, what are some things or trends that you're seeing in the note-taking space or the PKM space? And how can we think about it together and do a little mastermind, if you will.